Good morning, guys. Today in this tutorial we're going to create another enemy for the platforming series. In the first one we created this dude that chases you. In this next one we created some guy that shoots at you like that and sends you launching. They both send you launching, by the way. Today what we're going to do is we're going to create like a little rotating beam thing that will just spin around on the ground like that, and it'll take up like a whole platform like this. And the idea is that when the player's on the platform, the beam's spinning around and you've got to jump over the beam. And if you get hit by the beam, it'll send you launching and potentially knock you off the map. So let's go and get started with that. If that explanation was terrible, check out the end of the video and see what it looks like before you get started, before you commit to watching the tutorial. But let's just do it and we'll see what happens as we go. So right click in your content browser, new folder, and call this spinner, I guess. Right click, blueprint class, type actor, and we'll call this spinner BP. Add component, static mesh is what we want, and this is going to be the I guess we'll call that cylinder. And what this is going to be, you guessed it, it's going to be a cylinder, shape cylinder. Now this is going to be our beam. We don't want it to be upright like that, we want it to be on its side. So press E, rotate it like that, 90 degrees. And then we're also going to change the scale of the Z to maybe, I don't know, like 10 times. Something like that. You know what we could actually do? If we feel like getting really fancy today, we could parameterize the length of this, which I think we might do. Let's parameterize the length of it. So if this guy is just one like that, I wonder how wide he is. It looks like he's about 100 units. If you change the scale to 100 like that, you can see from there to there, that's 100 units. So he's 100 units across like that. I might just leave that on 100 actually. Oops, not 50, 100. Okay, so what we're going to do, in the construction script, today's going to be a fancy one by the sound of it. I'm feeling creative. So if we go cylinder like that and we say set world, oh, what if we just type in set scale? Set world scale 3D is the one we want. Now X and Y we might potentially play with. Actually, you know what? Let's just leave this like this. We'll just promote this like this and we'll say cylinder scale. What I'm going to do is I'm basically going to set up a bunch of different variables in this construction script that allow us to change in the game, to change the size and speed of this spinning thing that we're going to create. So by default the scale is going to be 1, 1 and maybe 5 on the Z. So it'll look like that. Okay, so 500 units long. Now what we want is we want to center that to the middle because we want to have it rotating around the center. So to do that is we're going to say set relative location of cylinder, and the new location that we're going to set it to. So right now the pivot is right there, so it's 0, 0, 0 like that. The new rotation that we want for this is going to be exactly the same except for relative location. So the X. So even though the orientation of this thing is all funny and Z is facing this way, if you look down at your axes down here, X is the horizontal across that, it's the red line on the grid, and we want to move this guy across on the X so that he's in the center. Okay? Hopefully that makes sense. So what we're going to do is we're going to get our cylinder scale, we're going to split that, we're going to get our Z value, because that corresponds to the length. And we're going to multiply that by, I believe it was 100. And that's 100 because every time we change the scale of this, so when the Z is 1, it's 100 units long. And when it's 5, it's 500 units long, etc. So every time we change the Z scale by 1, we're changing the length of it by 100. So we do that. We get the Z scale multiplied by 100, and then we're going to say div float, and we're going to divide that by half because we want to position it to the center. And then what we're going to do is we're going to get our new location node, and we're going to say make vector, and we're going to hook that up to the X, or maybe we'll make it negative and hook it up to the X. Let's have a look. Alright, so that was positive and hooked up to the X. We want to make it negative and hook it up to the X. Oops, so drag that out like that, and we'll say times float. Actually, there's a node that I'm not actually sure what it does, but let's try it. Negate float. Oh, we've got to hook it up. Don't worry about that. Let's just go times float, and we'll just multiply it by -1. Okay, and we hook that up to the X. I cannot be fucked rearranging all of those to be nice, and I'm not going to waste your time, so let's just go. Alright, boom, that's dead in the center. And now, we've got our cylinder scale down here. We can make that public. Let's change this to 10, still in the center. 20, still in the center. So we can make that whatever length we want. We can also change the other values, so we can make it thicker if we wanted. And that is the power of parameterizing your values. You can make weird instances of the same blueprint. Okay, so that's that. The next thing that we need to do is we need to add a collision to this thing. So the way that we're going to do that is we're going to go add component, collision. Let's roll with a capsule collision, maybe. That'll be fancy. Let's parent that to the cylinder, like that. Now let's just reset all of these values up here because they're all a bit weird. Now that's over there. We need to make it a bit wider so that it actually fits the cylinder. We're going to have to parameterize this as well, by the way, but I'm just trying to get an idea of what's going on here. So maybe we don't want to parent that actually. Let's just put it to the scene root like that, and then we can use the same method as we used for the cylinder to sort it out. So if we rotate that by 90 degrees, just like that, and we'll change the half height and the radius in the construction script. So all of this here is set up static mesh like that. Over here, what we're going to do is we're going to drag off of this, and we're going to say set half height, and we're going to say set radius as well. Another fancy trick when you're working with blueprint nodes and you want to line them up, highlight them all, right click, go alignment, and then you can say distribute. Oops, not distribute, I want align middle, just like that. And now those two are aligned. If I wanted to align them all, I could just highlight them all. Okay, so now the half height is going to be same deal as over here. Cylinder scale multiplied by 100 divided by 2, I guess, will be the half height. Let's see. I wonder if that was perfectly flush. If I go Alt and H and click on cylinder, oh no, you just got enormous. And that's probably because the scale here is set to 10. We don't want that. Set that to 1. Oops. Set them all to 1. Like that. Okay. Now where's our capsule? It must have the wrong rotation. So let's go Alt and G. What the hell's going on there? Oh, it's because the radius is set to 0. That's why we couldn't see it. So if we go back to the viewport, okay, there we go. That's looking pretty good. Looks like it's going to the ends. Maybe not quite right to the end. So what we could do is we could just say add float and just add a little bit of a buffer on the end. So maybe that buffer could be like 50, like that. And then compile. Alright, so now it's going over the edges. Beautiful. So we've got that. Now we just need to set the radius. So I guess the radius would just be the same thing. It'll be whatever the radius is of the what do you call it? Cylinder. So if I open up the actual mesh of the cylinder, it should be able to give us some dimensions. So if we go to content browser and type in cylinder and then open that up, 100 by 100 by 100, so it must be 100 across the top as well. So the radius would be 50 then. So if we go into the construction script, what we'll do is we'll have a look at cylinder scale, except instead of getting Z this time, is let's just get the X, and we'll multiply that by 100 because it's 100 across, and then we divide it by another float, which will be by half because we're talking about the radius, not the diameter. Okay. Now what do we got? A massive as fuck cylinder. I wonder why that is. A massive capsule. What is that cylinder scale? 111. Maybe it wasn't 100. Maybe it was like 50 or something. Oh, I went times by 2. God. I'm bloody slow this morning. Div by float. Okay, and then divide by 2. But then that's still going to be too big, isn't it? Oh no. Beautiful. That's perfect. Damn, son. Okay. But let's just add a little bit to that. So we'll go add float, just because we don't want it to be completely flush. So we'll add, I don't know, maybe like 20. Just so that when you come really close to it, it sends you off. Okay, beautiful. So that's how you parameterize your beam thingamabob. Now let's just add a little pivot in the middle. So let's type in static mesh. I don't want it to be typed cylinder. Let's just type in mesh there like that. And we'll change, oh yeah, it can be a cylinder, that's fine. And we're going to call this pivot. And what this is just going to be is this is going to be maybe like scale 3. No, it's too big. 2. 1. Let's just make it scale 1. And we're going to sit you down just like that. And this is the center that the thing is going to rotate around. Okay, now to make this look fancier, we could change the material of this to one of the fancy materials that we made when we built this proximity turret thing was something rather It was just a really basic emissive material. We can change that to, I think it was this one, so that this guy looks like that. It looks like you're not meant to touch it now, you know what I mean? So that's all good. Let's get this guy spinning now. So in the event graph, grab the cylinder. I wonder if I can parent this to this now, and nothing's going to break. And now if I rotate this, oh yeah, it's going to rotate around that horrible thing. Okay, that's fine. Instead of doing that, what we're going to do is we're just going to rotate the whole actor. Easy enough. Okay, let's just make this collision visible in game, so that we can just make sure that everything's working properly. Alright, in the event graph, we're going to say on begin play, we'll have a custom event as well down here, and this is going to be called start rotating. And then off of begin play, we're going to say start rotating, like that. And then off of start rotating, we're going to have a timeline, and this is going to be called rotation. Open up the timeline, oops. Open up the timeline, add a float track, call this 0 to 1. 0 to 1, oh, I can't even rename it, don't worry about it. Just add keys to the float. We're going to go 0 and 0. We're going to add another one, which is going to be 1 and 1, just like that. Change the length up here to 1, and make this looping, just like that. Okay, so this is going to take 1 second, and it's going to go from 0 to 1, and then it's going to start back from 0 and then loop again. And the reason that we want it like that is because what we're going to do is we're going to say set world rotation. Actually, no, let's go set actor rotation. Set actor rotation, like that. And new rotation is going to be lerp rotator. A is going to be 0, 0, 0, and B is going to be 0, 0, 360. And then alpha is going to be hooked up to 0 to 1. When it's 0, it's going to be 0, 0, 0. When alpha is 1, it's going to be 360. And anywhere in between is going to be an interpolation between those two values. So basically what we're going to get is this cycles from 0 to 1, is this is going to spin in a 360 just like that. And we should probably tick shortest path just in case something weird happens. Okay. Fingers crossed that that works. I gotta say, I'm not particularly hopeful, but let's let's just check it out. So if we drag out this thing over here, so we've got a little bit of room to play, and let's just bring it up above that grid so it looks a bit nicer. Now, where the hell did we save it? Spinner. Let's drop that in like that. bring you up, turn off the snapping so we can get you right in line, just like that, and then we hit simulate. Nothing happens. Why would that be? Begin play, start rotating. Let's just add a little print string in there. Okay, let's try again. It's definitely starting, but it's not rotating. Maybe we'll just set the relative location of this thing. Oh, but then we're going to have that annoying issue. Just give me a sec, guys. I wonder why it's not doing that. Let me just put a little print string over there to make sure that it's actually running the timeline. Okay, it's definitely running the timeline, but it doesn't seem to be... Alright, I've got an idea. This is a bloody hell of a workaround, but if we add a scene, and we just call that pivot scene, like that, and then what we can do is we can grab everything and then parent that to this, like that. And now where's pivot scene? Right in the center. We should be able to rotate this. There we go. We should be able to rotate that, and then this whole thing should be spinning. Okay. Thank God for workarounds, right? Let's just hope that this works. So instead of setting the rotation of the actor, we're going to set the rotation of the pivot scene. So we'll drag that in and we'll say set rotation. Oops. Let's just go relative rotation. Set relative rotation. Hook that up like that. Alright, fingers crossed. Oh, come on, man. Don't do me like that. It must be this. This must be the problem. What if we tick shortest path off? It was the shortest path. Oh, man. So that could have been working the whole time. Jesus Christ. Okay. Well, anyway, it works now. And I think the benefit of doing it as the scene is because before, if we had have done it as the actor, we wouldn't have been able to rotate this like this. So we could attach this to a wall now, and I believe it'll still spin properly. Yeah. If we had have set it to rotate as the actor before, instead of rotating the proper way, it'd still rotate around the Z like this. So now we've got the added benefit of having this as like a fan. So now you could like put this down like that, say between two platforms. Like maybe you had this one over here like this. You could have this over here like this, and you could have this one down here like this. This is getting into some level design territory now, and we could duplicate you and then have you around like that, so that they're like basically connected, and then you're in the level and your objective is to jump between them, so they're spinning like this, and you got to try and time your jump through the middle. And the collision didn't work, which is interesting. Let's have a look at that. Anyway, so they're spinning, and that's all good. Let's go and figure out the rest of this. So let's just make some space up here because we're running out of room. So I'm going to delete that wall. I'm going to copy this guy over here, and then we're going to drop our little spinning thing right there like that. Okay, so let's just change the rate of this. So down here like this, grab your rotation timeline and say set play rate like that, because we want to have them be able to move at different speeds. So we can drag off a new rate and we can say spin rate, just like that, because in general it takes 1 second. So we can change this to say 0.25 to make it go quarter speed. Just like that, and you can make that instance editable as well. How are we going for time? 20 minutes in already. Wow. Sorry, this is going to be a long tutorial, guys, but hopefully you're learning stuff. So that's spinning nice and slow. Oh, and we're on the top now. That's cool. It seems to want to just pass through us sometimes. When we add the collision, it probably won't be that big of an issue. Alright, let's give this a go. Not add the collision, sorry, add the launching properties. So, that's spinning. That's all cool. So I go add component. No, we don't want to add component. What we want to do is we want to get the component that we've already got, the capsule collision, which is set to overlap all dynamic. And then we're going to add an event down here, which is going to be begin overlap. And then this is going to say cast to character. So any character that overlaps it, we are going to launch you. Like that. Now launching here will be a bit tricky. The direction we won't be able to launch in a specific direction. What we can do is we can just launch away from the center though, because otherwise we'd need a system for recognizing the points along here and then launching the character from that point. Let's just launch them away from the center. It'll look a bit, you probably won't even notice it, to be honest. So launch character, we're going to do the same thing that we did in the last couple of tutorials, and you know what, we're just going to go into proximity turret, force explosion, and we are just going to copy this maths right here, like that, because we are going to do the exact same thing. And if you didn't watch that tutorial, don't worry, because I'll just explain this anyway. Okay, so delete that variable. This is going to be called launch speed, like that. So what we're doing is we're getting the world location of the scene route, which is the center, right at the center, like that. And then what we're doing is we're getting the direction vector from that world location of the scene route, get unit direction vector to the location of the character that we just overlapped. So that needs to be hooked up there like that. And now what we're doing once we've got that unit direction vector is we're stripping out the Z. We're not concerned with the Z value. And then we're normalizing the X and the Y so that the X and Y together has a length of 1. And then what we're doing is we're adding a 1 on the Z to the hypotenuse of 1 from the X and Y. And then that's giving us a 45-degree upwards angle in the XY direction away from the center of the spinner. And then this thing here, we should probably normalize that actually. We normalize that so that it has a length of 1. And then off of that, we're going to multiply that by a speed which we'll set to say like 500. And then we're going to launch our character at 500 in the direction of whatever that is. Okay, hopefully that made sense. Anyway, we can make launch speed public, like that, so we can change that later when we want to. But that should work, and let's just add a little, let's say spawn sound at the end. We'll spawn a sound so that the player knows that they've been hit, and the location can just be get actor location of self. Doesn't really matter too much. Okay, and that's going to be explosion, like that. Okay, let's see if this thing works. So we're in the game, we're over here, moment of truth. Yo! I don't think it's not aggressive enough. It needs to launch us away further. So to do that, we just close down this explosion BP, spin a BP, we're going to go launch speed and just change that to 1000. Oops, not 10,000, that'd be way too aggressive. 1000. Okay, beautiful. It's launching us away. So say you're going past, you can jump over it if you're good enough. Jump over it, get hit by it, you get sent back. Boom. Sent absolutely flying. I think it double hit me that time. So what we could do in here is we could let's just double click here to add a couple of reroute nodes, just like that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight all of this like that, and then I'm going to collapse that to a function that says launch character, like that. And the input pin there is going to be just called character. So on begin overlap with the capsule, if it's a character, then launch the character. But what we're also going to do is we're going to add a sequence node. No, not a sequence node. We want a do once node. We're going to say do once, launch, and off of the do once, we're going to have a sequence. So this will stop us from getting launched multiple times in like a fraction of a second. So the first thing that we'll do is launch the character. The second thing that we'll do is we'll have a delay, which will be 0.2 of a second. That's fine. And then we open up the gate again to launch the character again. Okay. So now we should never get launched extremely far away. Alright, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And if I get him really close, yeah, we're only getting launched once. Okay. So that's all good. Last thing that we'll do is we'll just make the collision of the capsule hidden in game again. Now let me just show you why we did all that work earlier to play with all those parameters. So now that we've got this guy, we can duplicate that and we can change the spin rate of this to say 0.5. So this one will be faster than the last one. Just like that. You can make that whatever you want. You could change that to 1 if you wanted, so that could be extremely fast now. We can also, all that work that we did in the construction script was, so now that we can change the Z to like 20 like that, for example, and now this one's a lot longer. Just like that. We can also change the other values, the X and the Y, so we can go 5 and 5, make a really big fat one that's impossible to avoid, basically. And that'll spin like that. What else can we do? We've also got the launch speed, so we could launch the character. So say for this one, because it's so big, maybe we want to launch the character really, really, really far away. So we can do that as well. So that's it. So like how you'd use this is like you could say make this platform a little bit smaller like that. That's probably still too big. So we could go like this and then put this in the center like that. And then maybe with all of that selected, we could add a couple of these out like this, and maybe your objective was to get to the end, so we'll add a little platform for the end like that. And what we might do is before the end one is we could chuck this in like this and then rotate you like that, up like that. And so let's like change the speed of these so they're all different on each one. So the spin rate of this one can be like 0.5 and they can get progressively faster. So this could be 0.75 and then this one could be 0.4 or something like that. Alright, and then if we hit play, that guy's going to try and kill us. We'll do some level design stuff later in the series, by the way. So we're jumping in here. You got to try and get past these guys. Oh god, that's hard. Alright, we're on top. That's cool. Alright, they're way too fast, so you'd obviously want to have them a bit slower. But that's fine, you know. I'll leave that for you to play around and experiment with. That's the end of this tutorial. And just as I finished up, I just had an idea for how to make this launch you away from the specific spot that it hits you on the edge. So at the moment it's set up to launch you away from the center, but I just figured out in my brain how I'd go about launching you from wherever you're hit. So what I might do is I might quickly end this one now, and then I might just quickly shoot another tutorial, which will be the one after this, showing you how to do that if you're interested, because you don't have to go and do that. This is kind of like a bonus, but I feel like doing it anyway because I want to see if I can actually create it. So that's the end of this. Hopefully that was helpful. It got a bit messy, but we got there in the end. Let me know if you have any questions and if it doesn't work or whatever, and I'll try to help you out. And I'll see you in the next one. See you guys.